of Azure Power Lunch. Just keep in mind that this call is being recorded and we place our recordings on our YouTube channel. Walid, floor is yours. Please take it away.
Thank you very much, Naveed. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Walid Amra. I'm a cloud solution architect, developer advocate at Microsoft. And today we're going to talk about Microsoft Graph API. And, just to understand, this is for developers, for .NET or any type of developers. And even if you're doing low code as well, this is good for you to know and understand this topic. A lot of people, do not or never heard about Graph API. So what is Graph API? Graph API is a unified endpoint that allow you access. It's an API that you can access Microsoft 365 services and some of Azure services, actually. And that's in a nutshell. And it's a global service that is available everywhere in the world and everybody can access it. So it's outside, so it's not hosted locally inside your system. It is actually outside and it's a global service for Microsoft. And every customer who has Entra ID and Microsoft 365 already have it in place and they can utilize it right away. And it will allow you access Entra ID, Outlook, and other services as well under Microsoft 365. And it simplifies the integration with those applications. As you know, Microsoft 365 is a very rich environment, actually, and has a huge amount of data. If you're an enterprise or even a smaller company, you have huge amount of data that you can utilize, and sometimes you would need, you would need to access this data. And one of the best ways to do this is, I don't know if somebody can please mute yourself, please.
So if I want to say the eyes, I just.
So thank you. So sometimes you need to access this information, like users inside Entra ID, which by the way, this is a new name for Azure Active Directory as well. It used to be this name, and now Entra ID. Groups, application, calendars, files, emails, sites, for SharePoint sites, Teams, to-do list, everything, almost everything at Microsoft 365 is available for you. So
if you don't mind, can you put the presentation mode? So it's kind of
the white?
no, I mean, it's like in the presentation mode.
Oh, okay, because I'm gonna switch between, a lot of it's gonna be very hard for me to switch in presentation,
Okay,
but I'll do that because I'm gonna switch. I can do that actually right now,
Yeah.
and once I
No,
switch,
whatever works for you.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and what are the capabilities and benefits is, and for example, like accessing user data, managing resources. You can manage actually resources as well, like creating users or adding users to groups, or creating new SharePoint sites, or create upload files to OneDrive, download files from OneDrive. Okay, and it will enhance your application functionality. For example, if your application wants to do something with Microsoft 365, you could add that feature and utilize Graph API, which is sometimes a lot of users, think, this is my application and it interacts with my database and that's it. But sometimes you need access to emails, or send a message to Teams, or get a message from Teams, or access files in OneDrive, and we cannot do that. Let's do this manually. It's like, you don't have to do this manually. You could use the Graph API for this. We talked about those document management. Let's say you want to upload some documents to OneDrive, like we said, you could do that in OneDrive. Create calendar from your application, a new calendar appointment or a meeting, you could do that as well from Graph API. So how to set up? What do we need for this? In order to do this, what you need to do is let me close this one. You need the following. You need to have an Azure subscription, which is or Microsoft 365. Once you get let's say you don't know what is Azure or whatever, and you have Microsoft 365, it will you get actually an Azure subscription that has the Intra ID for it. Maybe you don't have any other services over there, but at least you're gonna get Intra ID part of Microsoft 365. You don't pay extra for that. It's part of Microsoft 365. So you need that one in order to create, to be able to grant the application that you have a specific permissions, because you need to think about this service. Since it's a global service, security is going to be first thing. Why? Because this service will have access now to anything you give it to under Microsoft 365, all the emails for the company. But of course, we're going to see how to protect against doing this, even for a web application. And we're going to talk about this. You need to understand a little bit how to work with APIs and OAuth. And maybe you need software, you need an SDK, because it's not just only .NET. You can, if you have a Java or, Python, we have an SDK for that. And some people do not like SDKs. You could use an HTTP client and access the this API by yourself. By the way, one thing I want to show over here, you have a place inside here, and it's actually called, if you go get aka.msge for a Graph Explorer, it will take you actually to this. This Graph Explorer, once you go and log in as that user, it will allow you to go, and it's like a playground to test actually your API and your accessibility, and will teach you how to use the API. And if you see, for example, I need to get my own profile through. So what call, once you click, so you have all these, or get my photo, for example, or my profile, you would see this call, the API will change. And now you can go and do like run query, for example, and it will say, hey, here's your information. That's and this is not my user. This is just my test tenant, by the way. So it will tell you, and you can request headers, and you can do a lot of things, more permissions, what type of permissions you need in order to get all of this. So it's an excellent place to know what is exactly you need to do in order to do certain things. What's the response? And this is the most important one, is code snippets. That says, hey, in C#, how do I write this call exactly for this API using the SDK? See, it will give me over here the exact call, which I can copy now and put it inside. You don't have to, go and find out which one it is and search for it inside the SDK. You can get it from here directly. And usually this one will have the latest updated SDK calls for this one based on this. So use that one to find the best command, because sometimes it's very hard to find which command you need under the SDK. So this is the easiest way to do that. So I just wanted to show you this. There's a lot, and if you can see a lot of services for here. This is if you want to work with Planner, for example. Okay, look at this. You can do a lot of things with Planner. If you want to work with OneNote, OneDrive, okay, or to do Teams, you can do Teams stuff. If you want, you can create a chat. So all of this available for you, and actually it extends your power from just using only the Teams, application by itself, or Word, or Excel, or PowerPoint, or Outlook. All of these ones now you can control them from your application programmatically through this API. So this is the power. I think a lot of developers do not realize that they have that power, because almost all companies, they have the Microsoft 365, and hey, utilize that power and harness it through the Graph API. Even if you were using Power Apps, same one, you can use this one as well. So in order to create this one, you would go, and this is the intro ID. If you go over here and go to intro ID under your Azure portal.azure.com, you can create your own app registration and say, hey, I want to add a new registration. What is this? You're trying over here to create an application and control the security of anything you give permission for a specific application. You think about what you're trying. Let's say you're creating a desktop app, or console app, or a website that is gonna use and utilize GitHub. Use the Graph API. So I say, okay, you give it a context and you give it over here an app register. You register that app over here and what it can do. This is the security and the keys and everything that you can do in order to allow that app to be created and to utilize resources on protected by Intra ID on Microsoft 365. Not just that, there's also other Azure services as well. This is central place for managing security and applications for Microsoft 365 and also Azure services. So, and maybe we can have a different session. I think Naveed, you had multiple ones on Intra ID. I showed a lot of these things, but I'm just saying also in Graph API, this is actually one of the things we need to do. So I created for my application, I put Graph API sample. That's my my application. You need to focus on this. You have the most important thing is the application ID. This is your application, a unique ID for your application. You need it to unlock. This is one of the keys to unlock your service in or application to be able to communicate with Intra ID and get permission to do something based on this application. And the other one is your tenant ID, which is a unique number. Once we create your whole tenant for your domain, we give you a tenant ID, and that's static for all your apps, but each app will have their own unique application or client ID. So we need to make and record those two values because we need to give them actually for our application. The second thing you need to do also is authentication. What type of application you have? You have a web application, you have a single app like Angular, for example. If you're gonna iOS or Mac application or Xamarin or Maui, you take it over here on iOS. So you have to create this one, or for Android, for Xamarin or Maui on also Android, you can pick this one, or mobile and desktop application over here for other stuff like and then, for example, for my example is going to be over here for a console app. So I choose this one, and this is what I need. If you have UWP or WinForms, which is you need to authenticate and use Intra ID, also you could use this one. Okay, so you put then after that the URLs that you need to use, because I'm going to use Masal. I put this one, and then this is for my local, because I want to test it locally on my machine as a developer. So it will be the callback, direct redirect URI for my machine. This way I can test it locally as well. So another piece very important is this piece. This is a secret. This is you can create multiple client secrets, and I'm not going to go in details about this and how to rotate these keys and stuff. This is a different topic because we have a lot to cover here. And this kind of a secret password for a specific application in order to use it to unlock this service. This is some kind of security. So you need 3 pieces. You need the application client ID and the tenant ID and the secret. If you are doing a an application level, permissions. And I'm going to tell you about that because we're going to the API permissions. In order to be able this application to allow it, you have to give it permission on an API. Okay. So you go and ask it, hey, give me a permission. And if you see even, Graph API is the biggest one, and it will tell you, hey, take advantage of connecting to Office 365, everything, and when Enter ID, Excel, Intune, and all of these things, you can do them. So you pick. There's other services like, for example, DevOps, Key Vault. There's many other services that you can connect to. But for our example, for here, we want to connect to Microsoft Graph. And now I want you to pay attention to this because this is a little bit, confusing for a lot of people. And it's like, I say, okay, I'm going to give you to this. This is the global entry for this service. And I say, what type of permission your application require? Are you going to give a delegated permission or application permission? What does that mean? It's like means if you allow multiple users logging into this service and you want a user level permission on Graph API, for example, I want to get my own information, my picture, sometimes you have a website and you want to post a picture that is inside Enter ID or your name and your phone number, and you want to post them based on that user level. Or every user, when they log in, you want to put their picture and their phone number and their information there. So if you want to do that, then you can do a delegated permission in order for them allow the user to do specific operations based on their ability, because application permission is actually for the application what it can do. And sometimes application permission can do more than user permission. And you need to see if you're on the application level, what type of permissions you want to do. And for this one, you just need only the application ID that we said and the tenant ID, and you don't need a secret for that. But for application, in order to make it to protect it more, you need the client secret in order for you to get a permission. So if you want to do this, you can click on application permission now, and it will list now all delegated, and now there is different type of permissions, and the API is a little bit different between delegated and application permission. Okay. And in the Explorer, by the way, it can tell you which one to go and which one to use. And sometimes it's confusing because you have both sides can do almost the same thing, and you need to decide who's going to do that. Is it delegated or application permission? And you can see which one is that. And if you need to decide, think about that. Do you want the application to do the work on the behalf of the user? If yes, then you choose application permission. If say, do you want the user to be restricted only on what they can do and their permissions, plus the permission that is giving there and their powers, then you do it with delegated. And this is how you decide which one to do. So you choose the ones that you want and you click on the permission. And if you notice there is an admin consent is required or not. Without the Enter ID tenant permission, you will not be able to use this one. So you need the consent from the admin. So a lot of problems happen over here. And this is where actually it unlocks your power of the application or not. And this is why we need an Enter ID tenant admin who understands this, which they must do, because any wrong permission can allow access to data for developers or for the app that they are not allowed to access. And this is where, it's the scary part over here. We need to be very careful over here. And that's why I said at the beginning, this is security first. You need to pick the right. You don't give read, write, all, and everything. If the application needs, lower permission, you give it the lowest permission you can give it. Okay, and you choose all of this and it will become over here. And now, for example, this application that I have already have a user read. That means, and it's a delegated. That means the user can read the profile, okay? And it does not need the admin, request, consent. Why? Because it's your information. You can read it. It's no problem. You already have this information, so it's not sensitive. So you don't need admin. But over here, I want to list and read all sites, which is SharePoint sites, and list them as oh, okay, now I think this is sensitive information, means yes, I need it. And I already granted, because before it will be over here, not granted, and I can choose it and then click on grant as, because I am here, the tenant intra ID admin, so I could give this application, and I already granted it all of this. So now my application here, who has these pieces of information, this one, and that client secret, can do whatever this API over here can do. Okay? Any questions here before I go? Because this is very important. If you don't know how to do this and you did not understand it, then it's going to be very hard, because the rest of it is really easy now. Okay. Go over here and open the code. So I use .NET over here as an example, but you can use any programming language, like I said. So over here, if you notice, I added this graph API NuGet package. This is the SDK, and I said you don't have to have it, but I'm going to show you why I use it myself. And what it will do, it will make you easier. And this is like a console app. That means you run it from the command prompt. It's does not have any UI. And then I put specific information. See, I copied the client ID and the client secret. I know it's I'm gonna change it after that right away after this, because that means now you can go inside mine and see everything. And now I put the tenant ID and everything. And now instance, this is the Microsoft endpoint that it will do the authentication for me. And the scopes, which is now the scope of the Graph API. This is the default actually entry point for Graph API. The redirect URL for me internally over here in order for me to authenticate, which is my local host. And now over here, and maybe I can make it just a little bit over here bigger. And I have two types of authentication. When you connect to and get access tokens from Intro ID, I'm using over here the Masal, the Microsoft, authentication library, which is another SDK as well for accessing Intro ID, which also you can use only APIs if you know how to use OAuth. But if you don't, just use Masal library, and you can have the Masal for for Java, and you have Masal for Python, and you have it for different languages. So this is very important, because without this, if you don't have good tokens, then you cannot use the Graph API. Because remember, the Graph API is about security. If you don't have good security, then you cannot use it. So the first thing is your app is you're gonna pass the client ID, tenant ID, secret ID, redirect, and instance, and the scopes, and say, hey, talk to Intro ID and get me from my application tokens for me, allow me to access the Graph API. I want two types of tokens. I want over here an access application access token and delegated access token. And then after you get those ones, I'm gonna create a client, Graph dedicated client. This is where the Graph API SDK will work. Instead of that, if you don't have it, you need to create your own HTTP client, and you need to find the API that you need to call. And if you're wondering about that, I already showed you this. I already showed you over here that this is the one. So if you have HTTP client, you just take this one and you put it there, and now you have GET, you have POST, and you have something. It depends on what you need to do. And if you have a, let's see if you have something. See, you have even PowerShell, Python over here. But if you over here, you have the HTTP, you have the pure HTTP, and that's it. You don't need the SDK. Okay, so we create the client, and now we authenticate and we pass, for example, for the application client, we pass the application token. And for the delegated client, we pass the delegated token. And now we have a client that can talk to Graph, with the powers vested in them, what they can do. Is the maximum power depends on what? It depends actually on what you gave them over here. What type of power over here, input permission. What does this application do? It only can do this, nothing else. Okay, so just want to let you know that the power inside those clients here is the same power that you gave them over there. Okay, so over here, we remember how we got to this, the user me get async. You can go over here, and if you don't know what to do, you just go over here in the C# code, the one that I'm presenting, and you can show that, hey, I can do that. I just copied this one and put it actually over there. And now it is actually get access. It will go, and here is the power of this. Now, all these user, for example, information, all the properties, it's already provided to me by the cgraph models.user. So I have all the models, all the the objects that it's going to bring back. It will put it inside over here, and now it's available for me right away. I can print it, display name, everything, with actually IntelliSense, what they do, and information about it. That's I find that that's the power of this SDK. But the disadvantage I see out of the SDK is that sometimes we create breaking changes and your code suddenly does not work after you update that one, which happened actually a few versions ago, which is not nice, and it was not a good experience for developers to switch to the new interface or a new SDK that had broken compatibility with the previous one. Another one over here, I just went over here to get all sites. I'm using the application client because my delegated client cannot do this. Actually, it does not have, you don't have permission to get all of them, or maybe it does. You need to check. It depends. Sometimes you need to do it here or do it there. You don't know. You have to go and research what you're trying to do, and it will tell you which is the best way to do it. And over here, I'm going to get all sites, and it's going to return back to me the all sites over here. And under that one, it will return back for me the values, which is going to be multiple list of sites. And now I can go through them and print them and print the name of this one. So if I'm going to go and click on, run, I hope I made some changes. I hope it runs a minute before I do. So this is like this application, and it popped on my screen, another screen for me to to log in to that one. It's like how you log in to Microsoft 365 on the browser. And now I got back over here, and I have a breakpoint. And let me show you back over here. The output over here of this one. So it went over here, and this is not my user, this is my test username. So it displayed the username and the email address and the mobile number, and then all the websites which is SharePoint sites under my tenant. It got me the whole list. So this is just a simple application for how to do this, and how to actually utilize the power and harness the power of Graph API, and bring back actually the the value from Microsoft 365 applications over here. All right. Any questions? Wow, I was like I finished on time here.
I don't see any question in the chat, but that's very helpful.
Yeah, so a lot of people come up with, okay, what I can do with this, what type of use cases. There is unlimited amount of use cases actually you can do. Some customer, for example, ask us for, oh, how can I access? I want to access all my OneDrive files, search for something. You can associate it with actually AI now if you know how to create with Azure AI services, for example, with OpenAI, with whatever your preferred LLM that you use, and you want, oh, on these files that I put in OneDrive or SharePoint, how can I do things in my application to access them, or check my emails, read them, and summarize them as well? How can I link this with AI and with Graph API? So Graph API will facilitate for you, download the files, and will then you can extract the information from those files locally, and then we'll put the AI and get the information from it, let that process it, and get back the information and return back to the application. Now a decision, very fast thing over there that was not available for you before. So think about there is a lot of ideas. If you need more ideas, we have a lot of CSAs at Microsoft that they can give you amazing ideas on this. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time with this.
Thank you, Waleed. Uh, Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and hope to see everybody next week for another Power Lunch session. And have a great rest of your day and wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.